Good Friday morning, friends. Welcome to this week's episode of Finding God in the Dark. We're in a slightly different situation than you might be used to seeing us in.
We're on vacation.
We've decided to all go on vacation together. We are actually at our annual conference. It is the first day of conference, and we're getting together to talk about the film together live this week. Those of you who've been watching from the very beginning might recognize that guy over there. And why don't you reintroduce yourself?
Evan Dodge. I'm good friends with these guys and pastoring in Brick, New Jersey. And my inability to be regular on this has 4 names: Auden, Amelia, Beatrice, and Charles. My 4 children.
Indeed.
Jonathan Campbell. I'm the pastor of Lacey United Methodist Church.
And I'm Don. You all know me. This week we're going to talk about a film that Evan has picked out for us to watch. And, Jonathan faithfully did watch it, and I didn't. So we'll do our best with that. But the film is called Babel. It is a 2006 film. Starring Brad Pitt, among others. Directed by, I don't remember.
Alejandro Gonzalez, and another name that I can't pronounce.
That's why I don't remember. Yeah. Okay. So, where do you want to start on this one, fellas?
So
why don't you say why you picked it?
Yeah.
That'd be a good place to start.
So you guys, we were talking about a movie and asked me to pick one that I'd seen, and I can throw that out there, and then we could talk about it. I saw this when it first came out, and then I refamiliarized myself with it, over the last couple of days, and I remember most of the big points of it. One of the primary reasons I picked it was the name of it, Babel.
Yeah.
So for those of us swimming in biblical stories and in theology and religion, that should jump out to us.
Right.
The story of the Tower of Babel in the book of Genesis.
Right.
And confusion brought about by different languages and cultures.
Yep.
And that's really kind of what this movie is about.
Yes.
The movie has 4 distinct storylines. And as the film progresses, the viewer starts to see how these storylines are all intersecting, and how these characters are connected. So I love stories like that.
Just as an interjection again, I haven't seen Babel, but when you say these interconnected storylines, it sounds to me like Crash.
Kind of, yeah. Crash is a great movie, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know how specific we want to get into this. Well, I was going to say spoiler, but this is from 2006.
It's almost 20 years
I think
ago.
we can give you a spoiler.
Yeah.
So it actually starts out, it's kind of centered on Morocco.
Yes.
A lot of the events happen in Morocco.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, I forget his character's name.
I can't remember his name.
He and his wife are traveling in a bus, and they're in Morocco. There's a boy who has...
His wife is named Susan.
Susan, yeah, thank you. There's a boy who his father had given him a gun.
Yeah, to protect the herd
Right.
of sheep from...
Because they're nomadic
coyotes.
indigenous Moroccan folks.
Okay.
He discharges the gun, it hits the bus and hits Brad Pitt's wife. Okay, so then they run. They ditch the gun and they run. Brad Pitt and his wife get left in this village as the bus goes on. The tour guide stays with them. They're waiting for help, medical help. Meanwhile, they've left.
And then before that, you learn they're on the brink of divorce.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this trip, it kind of is to
his attempt to kind of make peace.
try to salvage the marriage. Then it cuts to this Mexican babysitter, a maid, nanny, who's got their kids back in the States.
Yeah.
She wants to go to this wedding. She takes his kids with them. Yeah. She gets into trouble there. The gender's getting separated from the kids.
Yeah.
And then I believe Japan, right, is the fourth distinct story.
Yeah, and the father of the girl that's focused on in Japan, the father had hunted in Morocco and gave the gun to his tour guide that was used in the shooting.
That's incredible. And meanwhile, the authorities in Morocco the father goes back with the boys to retrieve the gun.
Yeah.
The authorities are trying to figure out what happened. They end up discharging their firearms. I think one of the boys gets hit.
Yeah.
And then they're like
Oldest
shocked.
son
They were
gets
shooting
killed.
at children.
Yeah.
So it's incredible, but it really, I love movies that the whole plot hinges kind of on one event happening.
Yeah.
And if that one event had not happened, all these other monumental events like death, right? Marital disruption, suicide, like all these things are affected by this one choice that this one character makes to give this gun.
It's also about a movie about, and he actually dedicates it to his kids at the end. It's really about kids and parents in a lot of ways, because all the kids are either in danger or they die or they're at risk throughout the movie at different points.
Right.
And
due to the decisions from adults.
Yeah, the decisions of the parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you thought it was fascinating, but I don't know why, but it was fascinating to me about how each group interacts with police.
Yes.
And they have radically different interactions.
Yes.
So the Moroccan police treat the young boys and the father like crap. Like they just, and even when the gun is originally sold to the father at the beginning of the movie, and you see the guy who had originally owned the gun, who had gotten the gun from the Japanese tourist, he gets beat by the cops.
Right.
You know, and then you have this encounter with the same, I think it's the same cop later on by Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt's the American, obviously, and the American Brad Pitt yells and screams at the cop and treats the cop like crap, and the cop just kind of takes it.
Right, because here's this white American.
Yeah. And they even talk about how Morocco is so worried about this case because they're worried they'll lose tourism.
Right.
You know, and so, and then you have their maid, Brad Pitt and Susan's maid, and she was played by Kate Blanchett.
Right.
Their maid interacts with the police, the border patrol, and they pretty much just ramrod her out of the country and basically tell her how to react and what to do. And it's this weird interaction of, I know this word can get us in trouble, but privilege, and how your privilege and how you assume life should go oftentimes shapes your interactions with people.
Yeah.
Because the other interesting thing I found was when Brad Pitt's character calls up their nanny, and their nanny wants to go to her son's wedding.
Yes.
Like, that's a bad thing. And granted, his wife got shot, and there's a legitimate emergency. But on the phone, he basically goes, "You have to do this." He doesn't say, like, "I'll pay you extra," or please do this for me. He's like, you will do this. And it's out of this idea of she is essentially has to do what he wants to say, what he wants to do, because he employs her. And so those dynamics, I think, are really interesting. And I think at least the Mexican piece comes out of the fact the director is from Mexico City, and I guess he's kind of experienced all that.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting with something you said, that you enjoy these films that hinge on one event.
Yes.
Right? This is very revelatory for you, my friend, because this is why you like Coen Brothers movies, isn't it? It's
that's probably true.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, and in this, you're right. It's a lot about cultural assumptions, presuppositions,
and how we communicate or how we don't communicate.
Yes. And even though, and I think this is where the Babel kind of the name speaks to me.
Yeah.
In that it might not even be a misunderstanding of words, but there's a understanding of the cultural understanding behind the words.
Well, you get that with the nanny's nephew. Drives up to Mexico and then back, and he at the border says to the border patrol, he goes, "Is there a problem?" And he doesn't say it. I don't feel like he says it negatively, but you almost get this sense, and the border police is also Hispanic, so it's not a white Hispanic thing, but it's almost like the border patrol takes it as he's being a jerk, and he starts grilling the guy in ways that you get a sense, I feel like, if it would have been Brad Pitt in the car, And
Could
he
be
goes,
different. Well, sure.
he goes, hey, is there a problem? The response might have been different.
Well, he had, and also, but I think too, he had the kids in the car,
Yeah,
right? So here he is, Hispanic,
yeah,
and you got the two white kids in the car. Like I think the border guards, his suspicion was
There's a racial dynamic.
Yeah.
there,
definitely, yeah. And you think of, to me, I teach Bible literature at college, and we spend half the semester just in Genesis and Exodus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, those two books, they set up everything that follows, right? And I think, and we spend time on the Tower of Babel story because so much of everything that follows is predicated on that event. The Tower of Babel, right? I mean, you want to get back to misunderstanding, to miscommunication, to infighting and factions between people.
Yeah.
It kind of all goes back to the Tower of Babel.
And all of that is timeless. All of that is
Absolutely.
current.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And that's why I think this movie, I mean, I feel like even since 2006, again, this is, whatever one's persuasion or ideology is beside the point. But like issues of race and culture and how we approach those things and privilege, right? I mean, those are all words that have a lot of cultural currency right now. And I feel like this movie could have been made
some more charged than others.
Oh, for sure.
Be honest,
Oh, absolutely. That's why I said, no matter what meaning you ascribe to them, like a lot of these ideas and words they're everywhere. And I felt like this movie kind of. Well, I'm curious what you think, Jonathan. Do you feel like it offered anything hopeful?
Yeah, I do. I know this sounds weird, and if you haven't seen the movie yet, you need to. I think in a lot of great ways. No. But there is a scene, and if I tell you, it's a scene where someone is really been hurt and needs help going to the bathroom. But to me, it's one of the most beautifully romantic statements about marriage that I've ever seen on a film. You would say that's crazy. But the interaction between Cate Blanchett and Brad Pitt, she's been shot, she needs help going to the bathroom. All they have is basically a container for her to go in. And he helps her up, helps her on it, and she kind of has to fall into his arms, and they reconnect, and you get the sense that they've found a way to make peace and fall back in love. And it's just this beautiful statement to me of kind of what marriage is at its best. This idea of, I'm going to help you. We're going to get through this together. It may not be pretty, it may not be easy, but that's what we're going to do. And to me, it's a beautifully romantic. It's weird to think a urination scene is a beautifully romantic scene, but to me, it really was.
Yeah, that's the reality of marriage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
What was I going to say about that? I don't know. It went out of my head. Maybe it'll come back. I don't know. I was going to say, I remembered the reason why they had an infant who died. Suddenly, like that was the presenting issue, and that had fractured their marriage.
And he had left because he couldn't deal with it.
Yes, that's right. So that was the reason why they were in marital difficulty.
Yeah. But I think that I don't know. To me, that was hopeful, and in a weird way, the scene at the very end with the daughter on the balcony with her father,
he hugs her,
was hopeful. That idea of coming back together, even in the brokenness, kind of finding your way through it. I mean, to me, but unfortunately, there wasn't resolution with everything. But to me, that's a very American desire to have resolution for everything. Sometimes things get hung out there. Because we're dealing with the idea that we miscommunicate, right? And we struggle to connect, because this movie to me is a lot about connection, the desire for connection, the idea of loss and longing to be connected with, whether that be sexually or romantically, or even just having
familial, right?
Someone seeing you. There's a big piece about this, about someone seeing, and I didn't even want to put in the notes, I didn't put wanted to be seen and heard. It was seen and understood. To me, it was a bigger thing because there was this deep desire to no one understands me.
Yeah,
That's interesting, John, that you would bring up the idea of connection. You sound Methodist to me.
Yeah, on occasion I like it.
That's for all the Wesley nerds out there. Go ahead.
That
Joke, bad joke.
that principle that you're talking about applies even like to Richard and Susan, right?
Yeah.
Between the
Japanese.
Yeah,
young lady.
between the father and the daughter.
Yeah.
Like that misunderstanding, it happens even within one's own tribe, one's own cultural group, one's own language. Those who share one's own language.
Let's be honest, you can bring it right down, and it goes right back to families and even marriages, and you start with broken marriage in this film, right?
The scene that I was talking about, you get a sense in that scene that they never talked about the loss of their son. They never talked about to each other the damage that did to each other.
Yeah.
And it reminds you of how many people don't talk about their trauma with even the people closest in their lives. They don't process it together.
And I'll bet we could probably sit here and name a number of movies that have that sort of that idea in it. Loss of a child and how it affects a marriage.
Yeah.
Because it seems common enough that you can think of stories like that all the time.
Well, I think probably we can even think in our own ministries.
Yes.
Of people who've lost a child. And I think that I was thinking this the other day because of somebody else in my church connected to the church who lost a child in his 20s. That can either destroy a marriage or make the partners closer.
Yeah.
I've just kind of anecdotally seen that.
Yeah.
Either we go one of two ways.
Yeah.
So communication, I think, is like one of the buzzwords of this film. The breakdown of communication, and then the real trauma that can breed.
Yeah, and then to me another big thing is you could talk about the idea of the butterfly effect. This idea of small actions rippling throughout even the world. It's so this thing that you think doesn't matter at all impacts thousands of lives from people you never met.
Right.
But this idea that's really a huge part of this movie, right, is the kids are doing something stupid. They're trying to see if it can go the 3 kilometers the guy that sold them said it can't, was shot it. They shoot at a bus. And then because they hit it, someone almost dies. The oldest brother dies in the family. Right. And the youngest son's life is probably he may spend the rest of his life in a Moroccan jail.
Wasn't the father injured?
Father was shot too.
He was injured.
Probably there's a scene at one point in the movie that's on TV at another location where they clearly have been arrested. So you're like, their lives have been spiraled out. This nanny who honestly wants to just go to her son's wedding takes 2 kids because she can't find anyone else to take care of them. Her nephew does something crazy, drops them in the desert, and she does something that is probably not a good idea, but you can see, okay, we're out in the middle of the desert, I'm worried about dying, I'm going to leave the kids here and try to go get help because I can't carry them. And, she ends up getting deported and almost could have been thrown into jail. And again, it's this stupid idea by 2 kids to shoot at a bus, really wreaks havoc on like 8 people's lives, and they're all around the world. Yeah. 3 continents: Asia, Africa, and the United States. And that idea, I think a lot of people today, we have a tendency to live in our bubbles. We have a tendency to believe that my decisions only impact me. Right. And we forget the gospel imperative is that your actions matter. Yeah. Your actions have consequences.
And not just your actions, but your behaviors, how you live reflects not just on you, but on if you live a public faith life like we do. Right. It reflects on our ministry. And let's be honest, we could tell stories about that sort of thing too. We're not going to. but we could.
We'll do it on the extra podcast. You got to pay.
That's behind the paywall.
Send me $100.
Yeah, send me $1,000. I'll tell you any story you want to hear.
All right.
I'll make it
Any other thoughts on this film? I'm obviously feel like I've missed out.
I would definitely watch it.
Yeah.
It's so well done.
Yes.
It won several awards. Let me just tell you what it won. As I had the page open here, it won something.
You could talk about the pressure to fit in, because that's a huge part of this. You know, the shooting starts because the older brother is intimidated or struggles with the fact his younger brother can shoot well and he can't.
Right.
Right. The daughter in Japan is desperate to have someone romantically connect with her, and to the point where she basically sexually assaults her dentist. She puts a cop in a bad position by coming out naked. But she's desperate to fit in. In her mind, having sex is necessary to be a woman, necessary to be
seen and
valued.
Yeah.
That's how. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
She equates sexuality and someone finding you sexually desirous to your self-worth.
Right. Yeah.
And again, that idea, I think, is something we all struggle with, is the desire to fit in, even when fitting in can put us or others in the danger.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. It won Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival in 2006. Let's see. It won the Golden Globe Award for Best Motion Picture Drama. Received 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Best Director, 2 nominations for Best Supporting Actress, and it won the award for Best Original Score.
Yeah, and the director, I can't say his name too, I feel bad. He's actually won 4 Oscars. He won 3 for Birdman, and he won 1 for Best Director for the Bear movie with
The Revenant.
The Revenant with Leonardo.
That's a great movie. 21 Grams.
Yeah.
He also directed.
Yeah,
but The Revenant was great.
yeah.
I've heard that's a tough film to watch. I haven't seen that one. I heard that's a tough one to watch. Well, so I guess the recommendation is that go see this film if you haven't.
Absolutely.
Well worth your.
Go to your local Blockbuster and rent the video cassette for.
And think through what you do in life.
It's available. Yes. I know where it's available. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a pay-per-view on Amazon Prime, so you can see it there.
You can probably though at this point get like a used DVD copy on Amazon.
You can probably. You very likely could get it in the Walmart discount.
It's also
for $5.
Paramount Plus if someone wants to.
Oh, for free on there? Okay,
Yeah.
if you are a Paramount Plus subscriber.
So, Babel recommended.
Yeah.
As far as next week or maybe even later this week goes, we have a plan. We'll see how conference allows us to execute the plan. But we have a plan to maybe give you some information about what conference looks like and kind of the business of the church that we do in conference, because I know a lot of people hear, oh, you have to go, well, why don't you just skip it, or there are other things you can do, or how can
There's a lot of clergy that do that.
There are some clergy that do, but the reality is it is a requirement for particularly those of us who are ordained, and that we do take care of some important business of the church, the local conference and the local churches. So we want to fill you in on some of that stuff. If we get a chance, we're going to try and sit together, maybe all 3 of us or 2 of us at a time or whatever it takes, just to talk about some of the stuff that's going on at conference, and we'll give you that information as well, because I think that's important too. This is fun. That's important. So other than that, friends, we don't know exactly what we'll be into next week, but we're still working on the Chosen.
We'll work it out,
So we'll definitely we have a couple of things in the pipeline. The Chosen's coming up. We're going to continue on that. Season 5 comes out June 15th, so we'll catch up with that. And we're also, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, we're definitely going to talk about the film Sinners, which is in theaters right now. It's been out for a few weeks, and oh boy,
But it's rated R for a reason. So please,
it is definitely.
please take that into consideration before you go see it.
Don't run out to see it if you're not comfortable with it's basically it's a horror film.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
you know,
and it has a lot of sex in it.
and yeah, it's an R-rated film for good reason.
Yes.
But other than that, friends, we're glad you're watching. Keep on finding God in the dark. We'll see you all again next week. Take care.
God bless.
Yep.
Cut.
Nice.
Thanks.